I think it's disgraceful. It's it's a desecration, really, I think. I don't know that anybody particularly wants a big ballroom. And even for those people who did want it, the promise was that the White House wasn't going to be touched.
Right in the heart of Washington, D.C., a piece of American history is vanishing. The White House East Wing, a structure that has stood for over a century, is the site of rapid demolition. In its place, a massive 90,000-foot square ballroom is scheduled to be built. President Trump is calling it a gift to the nation, hammering home the point that it's funded entirely by private donations, with not a single cent coming from taxpayer money. But that story of simple generosity might be masking something a lot more complicated. Who are the donors pouring hundreds of millions into this project? What are they getting for their money? And what does it mean when private wealth can physically reshape the people's house? The project is nothing short of audacious. At 90,000 square feet, the new ballroom would nearly double the size of the main White House itself. The administration says it's a much-needed upgrade, a world-class venue for state dinners that get rid of the embarrassing tents on the South Lawn. And by using private funds, they argue it's a public good that doesn't cost the taxpayer. President Trump has even suggested the final fundraising total is closer to $350 million, presenting the extra cash as proof of the project's popularity. But not everyone is celebrating. The biggest point of controversy is the demolition of the historic East Wing to make room for this new structure. Built in 1902 and expanded in 1942, this isn't just some random building. It's a part of the White House's heritage. The decision to tear it down has sparked a firestorm of criticism, with figures like presidential historian Douglas Brinkley calling it painful, almost like slashing a Rembrandt painting. This feeling of unease is widespread. According to a YouGov poll, 53% of Americans disapprove of demolishing a portion of the East Wing for the renovation. The administration pushed forward anyway, with demolition starting in October 2025. Critics say this move cleverly bypassed a key oversight step. Reports indicate that because the initial work was demolition, it didn't need pre-approval from the National Capital Planning Commission, which only signs off on vertical construction. By the time the commission gets to review the plans, the East Wing is already a pile of rubble, a done deal.
As for the cost of the ballroom and the construction itself, all of that is going to be, like I've said, privately funded and paid for by the president himself and many generous patriots who have stepped up. A submission is not required legally for that. Only for vertical construction will a submission be required, and that's a legal opinion from them, and we are following that legal opinion. And
the secret list of donors. So who's footing the bill for this? The White House insists it's all private generosity, and to prove it, released a list of 37 donors who have pledged the hundreds of millions required. This isn't a list of small dollar donors, it's a who's who of global corporate power. The names are exactly who you'd expect. Tech giants like Meta, Facebook's parent company, Apple, Amazon, and Google are all on there. So is Microsoft. The telecom sector is represented by Comcast and T-Mobile, and from the world of defense contracting, you'll find Lockheed Martin and Palantir. These massive tax-deductible donations are being made directly to the project. This setup allows corporations to give huge sums of money to a project championed by the White House, all while getting a tax break for their supposed charity. But while the White House has shared the list of names, the specific amounts given by each company are still mostly under wraps, creating a serious lack of financial transparency. And that brings us to the big question. Why? Why would these multinational corporations, many of whom are in constant negotiation with the federal regulators over everything from antitrust lawsuits to billion-dollar government contracts, suddenly feel the urge to fund a presidential legacy project? Is it just civic pride, or is it a smart investment in access and influence at the highest level of government? Interestingly, while President Trump has said he will personally contribute, his name is not on the official list of 37 donors. Following the money trail. When you start connecting the dots between the donors and what they want from Washington, a pretty clear picture starts to form. This isn't just charity, it's business. Let's start with big tech. Google's parent company, Alphabet, is reportedly contributing $22 million, money that comes from a legal settlement with Trump. Google, along with Meta, Apple, and Amazon, has been under a microscope in Washington for years, facing antitrust probes and calls for tougher regulations. A multi-million-dollar donation to a project the president is passionate about could be seen as a smart way to build some goodwill and make sure your voice is heard when it counts. Then there's the defense industry. Lockheed Martin is reported to have chipped in over $10 million. A company like Lockheed depends almost entirely on the U.S. government for its business, selling fighter jets, missiles, and other weapons systems. For them, a donation like this is a rounding error. But it's also a strategic move to keep a strong relationship with their number one customer. It raises a tougher question. Can a president whose legacy project was funded by a defense contractor stay objective when it comes time to award the next big military contract? This pattern of potential conflicts of interest runs through the entire donor list. Media companies, financial firms, and tech giants all have business pending before the government. By donating to the ballroom, they aren't just funding a building, they're weaving themselves into the fabric of the executive branch. The whole process has been helped by a political landscape that seems to favor the project. Concerns have been raised by Democrats and watchdog groups about the lack of oversight. From bodies like the National Capital Planning Commission, the entire structure from the private donations to the questions about oversight seem almost perfectly designed to channel private money into a public landmark. The price of access. Let's recap what we know. A $300 million ballroom is being built in the White House. To do it, they've demolished a historic part of the complex, a move a majority of Americans opposed, according to one poll. The project is being funded not by the public, but by a handful of the world's richest corporations, including big tech and major defense contractors. These donations are tax deductible, and we still don't know exactly how much each company has given. This is what's really going on behind the shiny architectural renderings. The project creates a direct pipeline for corporate money and influence into the White House. It sets a dangerous precedent that if you have enough money, you can literally rebuild the people's house however you want. It makes you wonder, is the White House still a public trust? Or is it just another piece of real estate for the highest bidder? And while the administration loves to say that no taxpayer money is being used for construction, that's not the whole story. Once this 90,000 square foot facility is built, who's going to pay for the lights, the heating, the security, and all the maintenance for years to come? Those long-term costs will almost certainly fall to the American taxpayer. So the public is being asked to pay for the upkeep of a project they never asked for, funded by billionaires who may be buying influence in return. This isn't really about architecture anymore. It's about accountability, transparency, and the steady crumbling of the wall between corporate interests and the public good. What are your thoughts on this? Is a new ballroom a necessary upgrade for the White House, or is it a Trojan horse for corporate influence that we're paying for with our own heritage? Let us know what you think in the comments. And to make sure you don't miss our next investigation into how money shapes power, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you believe in independent journalism and want to help us keep telling stories like this one, please think about supporting our work by getting a membership here at the Spin Cycle. You'll find the link in the description below. Thank you for your support. Your support is what makes these deep dives possible. In conclusion, the new White House ballroom is going to be magnificent. It will be grand, opulent, and designed to impress. But when its doors finally swing open for that first state dinner and leaders from around the world are standing under those new chandeliers, the real question will be, who is the real guest of honor? Is it the American public? Or is it the private corporate interests who paid to build the room itself? The demolition of the East Wing shows that with a big enough check, history can be torn down and rebuilt. We have to demand to know the full price of this project, not just in dollars, but in political influence.